fundamental reason is that staying maleficent means mixed in the process of their ordinary human existence, which they call education. This maleficent means is applied there to all the young beings during their preparatory age, but especially to those who later on almost always become power possessors. Do not make use of the time intended by great nature for the preparation of data for a worthy and responsible existence. They only waste it in developing in themselves the properties resulting from this celebrated education, which as a rule only dictates to them how best to give oneself up to what is called self-calming. When they become responsible and undertake to fulfill responsible obligations, they naturally have no data at all for manifesting, logical reflection, and prove to be incapable of any impartial relationship with those of their fellow beings who come under their sway by virtue of surrounding conditions. Owing to this abnormal education of theirs, nothing is deposited in them which would enable them to reflect and put anything effective into practice, but, on the contrary, many consequences of the properties of the for them accursed organ conductor, devised by the great angel, archangels, Lewisos, are gradually trained in the man, beings transmitted by heredity from one generation to another, crystallize in the psyche of these unfortunates and become organic functions. The consequences most frequently met with today exist there under the names of egoism, partiality, vanity, self-love, and so on. To describe the power-possessing or important beings there, our wise Mullahnasir Eddin has a very interesting saying. The importance of these people is measured exclusively by the number of their coins. Single quote. And so, my goal. Many contemporary free-brained beings of your planet who can afford to live themselves and to satisfy all their other needs, and perhaps to do something to struggle against the phenomenal evil prevailing on their planet, feel insatiated, and are reclining in what are called their soft English armchairs, in order, as is said there, to digest it all. They do not even take advantage of these favorable conditions for sincere thinking, but only abandon themselves to their maleficent, self-calming. Single quote. Impossible for any free-brained being of the universe and therefore also for any of the beings of the planet to exist without mentation taking place in them, and since, at the same time, your favorites wish to be able to give themselves up freely to their inner evil god, self-calming, they have gradually and very efficiently accustomed themselves to a sort of purely automatic thinking without the least being effort of their own. Give them their due. In this they have attained perfection, and at the present time their thoughts flow in all directions without the intentional exertion of any part of their presence. When, for instance, these important in power, possessing beings of the earth, gorged and satisfied, are reclining in their armchairs, the associated thoughts which cannot stop flowing in them receive impulses only from the reflexes of their stomach and sex organs and wander freely in all directions, as they say there, to their heart's content, as nonchalantly as if these thoughts of theirs were strolling of an evening in Paris along the Boulevard des Capucines. When one of these power-possessing beings of your planet I would make. I would do this, that, and the other, and not behave like that idiot who, like a dog in the manger, neither eats himself nor lets others eat, and so on in the same strain. However, it does occasionally happen that some important power-possessing being of the earth suddenly thinks, not under the influence of the reflexes of his stomach and sex organs, but sincerely and quite seriously about some question relating to this terrifying terrestrial problem. But even the sincere reflections of the power possessors occur for the most part quite automatically, from casual outer causes. For instance, the existence of someone very near to them is brutally cut short in the latest process of reciprocal destruction, or someone offends them deeply and painfully, or someone touches their emotions by giving them something they either value very highly or did not in the least expect, or finally, when they really feel their own existence drawing to an end. In such cases, when these power possessors ponder sincerely on this terrible evil rampant on their planet, they are always greatly agitated by it, and while in this state, of course, they vow to undertake and carry out at all costs everything necessary to put an end to this scourge. But here lies the misfortune: no sooner do the stomachs of these, sincerely agitated, beings become emptier, no sooner do they recover a little from those disheartening outer impressions than they not only forget their vow but again begin, consciously or unconsciously, to do everything that generally causes the outbreak of these processes between communities. It very often happens that these power-possessing beings, unintentionally or even half-intentionally, do everything to hasten the outbreak of the next process of reciprocal destruction, and even dream of it taking place on as large a scale as possible. And this monstrous need arises in their abnormal psyche because they expect certain egoistic profits from these processes, and with their degenerate mentation, even hooked that the greater the scale of the process, the greater the profits will be for themselves or for their relatives. However, it sometimes happens there, my boy, that certain of these important power-possessing beings unite and form a special society with the aim of jointly finding and putting into practice some means of abolishing this arch-criminal particularity of theirs. Just as I was leaving that solar system forever, there was again a great deal of talk on your planet about forming such a society, and it seems that they were intending to call it League of Nations. I say, often because many times before they had formed similar societies which in the end always died in the same strange way, that is, they always died without any agony. I remember very well the first time such a society arose there. It was in the Simonis, in the country of Kiplianish, which was then regarded as the chief center of culture for all the free-brained beings of this peculiar planet of yours. Then for the first time important beings from most of the communities of the continent of Asia assembled in that city with the aim of drawing up a common agreement, so that among the different Asiatic communities there would never again arise any cause whatever for the process of reciprocal destruction. This society had as its motto, God is where man's blood is not shed. But owing to their various personal egoistic and vainglorious aims, these important terrestrial power possessors who had assembled soon quarreled among themselves and went their ways without accomplishing anything. if a single one is killed by another, then all will be reduced to nothing. And quite recently, barely 4 or 5 of their centuries ago, the last such society was formed, also on the continent of Asia, in the city that is called, it seems, Mophalopolis. At its arising this society was named, the earth belongs to our common creator and is equally free for all his creatures. But shortly afterward, when some dispute broke out among its members, they renamed it society, and later it ended its existence under the new name of, the earth belongs only to men. Single quote. The members of the society, the earth is equally free for all, might perhaps have accomplished something effective because, in the first place, they had a feasible program as the basis of their aims, and second, they were all, without exception, old and honorable beings who had had a great deal of experience and in consequence had become disillusioned about everything that ordinary planetary existence could in general give them. And owing to this, they had fewer properties such as egoism, vanity, and so on, which usually cause societies of this sort to collapse. And the main reason why something useful might have come out of this society is that there was not a single power-possessing being in it, not one of these being free, driven by their egoistic and vainglorious aims, sooner or later dispatched, nor overlooked, musical accompaniment, as they say, all the achievements of the common planetary society of which they happen to be members to the famous swine of honor. possible